Looking to pick up your very own custom sleeves? Well, look no further. Go to yourplaymat.com where you can choose to have your very own image on the back of sleeves, or you can choose from their amazing range of pre-designed artwork ready and waiting for you. Get them shipped directly to your door and use the affiliate link and discount code down below to get 10% off. What are you waiting for? Go and grab your custom sleeves from yourplaymat.com.
What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr Wargames, bringing you my first place return to local Invoked Ogdoadic profile. This deck actually has crazy synergy and works very well. I'll also show you a combo at the end. I'll explain all of my side deck choices and what I sided in and out and the mistakes I've learnt from as well. With all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. Also, keep your eyes out as we do have the Venom Battle Gear playmat with Obelisk, Ra and Slifer coming out very soon, as well as your own discount code, link in the description below, for not only to get packs, cards and normal sleeves from Tier 0 Games, but to also get your own custom sleeves from Yourplaymat as well. With all of that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into this profile. I'm going to keep the profile very short, sweet and simple, but I'll explain everything else when we get to it. So, triple Alistair the Invoker, Alistair go Burr, best normal summon in the game in my opinion as a splashable card. Triple Nunu and Triple Naya, these are the cards that make the snake so good. So Nunu sends itself from hand and a dark snake from the deck, and then Naya sends itself from hand and a light snake from the deck. So there is the 2-card combo, which is basically Alistair plus Nunu, gets you pretty much full combo and very powerful boards. And then the last lower level snake we play is Zohar. This one actually put in a lot of work. I should probably explain what I faced. So I ended up facing Pure Zoo, and that was like a nightmare because it was just Zeus all day long with Trident. I then faced Dragon Link, and the duel for that is either gone out or will be coming out, depending on what day I put this profile out. And then I ended up facing Orcust, and in my final matchup I played Madolches. So there was a lot of Rogue, but obviously I got to face the meta of Dragon Link as well, and this deck certainly held up its own. It went through grind games, it went through brick games, it went through just quick, swift games as well. So good. I can't, praise this deck more. The only downsides are the best cards of the deck as well is Alarit and Curse. So both of these have the same effect that they get to tribute a monster. So if you've got Lair of Darkness, you can tribute one of your opponents. And what these can do is Curse summons itself back. It lets your opponent special summon a monster from their graveyard, and then you get to special summon a level 4 or lower snake. Alarit lets your opponent add one back from their graveyard to the hand, and lets you put 2 banished monsters back from your banished zone to the graveyard, but one of them must be a reptile. Zohar, you don't use its on-field effect ever, but what you kind of do is you have the effect in the graveyard to discard a card to add it back to the hand, which is very good if you open up some of the big guys. You put them into the grave, bring this guy out, and off you go. The last boss monster I've got is the Ogdoadic Overlord. Now, I was playing King because King doesn't have the same kind of restriction. So your full power end board is something like the Hyperion plus Dragoon plus a Macabre, and then you've either tried to make the Overlord or you've got something else. Now, obviously, having Overlord to that end board, yes, it's another form of disruption, but all of your cards you've just built the board up will get lost. This put in a lot of work, so I've not got any issues with it. But you've got to be very careful when you play it, and you do have to think about it a lot. Because it sends all monsters on the field that weren't summoned from the grave, you're going to lose all of your big boss monsters if you need to. So you kind of want to leave this as a bluff to your opponent, like, go on, do it, I dare you. If you play through my negates and you're still able to go, I will send everything. And that's kind of what you want to use him for. For the hand traps, pretty standard, triple Ash Blossom, double Veiler, put in a lot of work. I was so worried, like, from the remote duels I'd been playing, I was so worried that people were just going to go, cool, Verte, Dragoon, if everything got stopped. I was like, right, I want to avoid that where at all possible. Yes, I can bait out the one Dragoon negate, but then I have to work really hard to get rid of Dragoon, and I was like, I don't really want to do that, so I last minute chose to main deck the Effect Veiler. Actually won me the game against the Orcust player, so it did put in a lot of work. Yeah, and there was, in the Dragon Link one, you'll actually see that I normal summon this and get game off of it, so you'll see that later on. The final hand traps, of course, were Gamma with the driver, purely because you play Meltdown, you play Snake Crane, and keep in mind, with Curse and Alarit, you tribute as cost. So if you've got no other monsters on the board, you tribute, then get rid of them off the board, and then if your opponent tries to Ash them or Bell you or anything like that, you can trigger off a Gamma, and you're good to roll from there. The final engine, of course, Dragoon package. It's too strong. It really is. Like, I've got no issue if any part of the engine gets banned to make this non-splashable. That's completely fine. It just opens up free spaces for me in the main deck, which I'm completely happy with. But right now, with so much disruption, so much bait out and stuff like that, is the way it works is your Alistair is your bait out. So you go normal summon Alistair, I dare you to Ash me. Or I go Terraforming or Meltdown, I dare you to Ash me. And that's where they kind of go from there. And then you'll go Nunu or Naya, I dare you to stop me. And then if they do that, you've got, okay, I've got Nunu or Naya, the other one I haven't used, I dare you to stop me. And if they ultimately end up stopping those, as long as you can still get Curse to the graveyard and get a monster to the board, you can go Curse, Tribute, bring back Naya. Naya gets you the Monster Reborn spell and the Foolish Burial of the Ogdoadic Water Lily. Link 2, Verte, Dragoon, cool. Even though I've baited out 3 of your hand traps from your hand, you've still got 2 more cards to play with, plus the card you draw. I'm going to be negating one of them with Dragoon. And if you can't out my Dragoon with the remaining 2 cards, I'm pretty much going to win the duel from there on, because my graveyard will be stacked for recursion during the next turn. So that's it for the monster lineup, with, of course, the Dragoon lineup. Pretty standard on this one. Moving on to the spells, of course, triple Meltdown and the single Terraforming. I actually found myself siding out a Meltdown purely because it probably is not the best thing to side out, but the way I kind of saw it was, I didn't want to open up multiples when I was going second. Once I knew what I was facing, I would much rather have a direct out, and you'll see that all from my extra deck later on. Side deck. So I kind of thought, all right, Meltdown was one of the ones I could sacrifice. From the monster lineup itself, there wasn't really anything I took out. I might have taken out the Gammas if, like, my opponent was, like, if it was only Ash that was going to try and stop my stuff going off. And I sometimes dropped Ash down to 2, if not completely, to swap it out for stuff like Lanciers and Drolls, because obviously they're going to be 10 times more effective against a Dragon Link player to stop them outright, rather than the 1 Ash. Obviously, 2 Invocations. I didn't want 3. I'd never really want 3. And particularly in this deck, when I'm only playing 3 Invoked Fusion targets, and one of them's a little bit more difficult, which I'll explain when we get to it. And you'll see that in a game as well, where I was kind of like, ugh, probably can swap this out. 2 is more than enough. Triple Snake Queen, broken, busted, love it, so good. Double Ogdoadic Water Lily. So again, I've seen a lot of profiles playing 3. I never want to play 3. I never want to open this. Like, 9 times out of 10, as long as you get to the combo, which is very consistent considering you've got Snake Crane, Nunu, and Naya to get to that part of the combo, you're always going to search off the Water Lily. So there's no point where I ever like, oh, I wish I'd open up Water Lily here. So 2 is more than enough. And I actually, in some game, I would side this out if I didn't need it in the grind. The only time that I was like, oh, I wish I had a 3rd was in the Zoo matchup because it grinded for so long. But once you've resolved this once, the next time you play the combo, you should be winning a duel. And if you haven't, you search out a next one, you bring the board out, and that's where you bring out your Overlord, and that's where your Overlord's going to pretty much go, right, I'm going to shut the game down from now on. I'm going to leave my opponent on lower life points, and then if they try to do anything, I'm just going to send everything to the grave. So 2 worked perfectly. And by playing 2, it let me put the space in for 2 droplets. Keep in mind, you only need 2 cards to combo. But the one downside about Droplet is when you're ending your board on something like Dragoon and Macabre, you've got to keep in mind that you're going to be losing 2 cards from your hand in order to make those cards alive and active. So Droplet using cards from the hand is very, very weak. But what made Droplet so good is if you got Dark Ruled, or if you wanted to get rid of your Verte, then Droplet was a very, very nice negate. So, which is why I, again, last minute decided to put this in at 2, and I've sided in the 3rd, and I'll explain that later on. I've then got 2 Pot of Prosperity. Such a good card when it resolves. Like, there were so many times where I activated this and I ended up banishing 6. You very rarely want to banish 3, and I'll show you the cards that I ended up banishing off of Pot more times than not. And every time when I excavated the 6, it was always 5 cards I didn't want to see and 1 card that I did. So it worked out for me, but it's very, very risky. 2 was enough. I think every time I was testing with 3, I kept clogging. I kept either revealing another Pot, or I kept drawing into 2 of them, and you never really should be resolving this twice, ever, because you're going to burn through more of the extra day anyway. And the final card is Monster Reborn, so puts in work, does what it did, actually helped me win the game against Dragon Link, just allowed me to pretty much set up my combo, because I forgot 1 card in my extra deck, like a fool. So speaking of the extra deck, we'll go over the XYZs first. So you've got King of the Feral Imps, so this is part of the combo. You get locked into Reptiles when you bring Nunu back via its own effect, and only via its own effect. So you need to make King of the Feral Imps, you detach, that's when you search out your Naya, and then you're good to go from there. Yes, the combo can be a little bit fragile, but if you really wanted to play it safe, you can probably make a Macabre first, or you kind of work it that way. So there are breaking points throughout the combo, but even then you still have the ability to further extend should you need to. The one card that I think is absolutely amazing is Rika Queen Strenna. This is so good. So the way that this works is part of the combo is when you use Cross Sheep, you bring back another level 4, you activate Ogdoadic Water Lily to bring back another level 4, you make Rika Queen, and then you tribute off the Rika Queen with Alarit, and then that will summon back Alarit. And because Strenna Queen was tributed with materials, it lets you special summon out the Hyperion from the extra deck and attach it with Rika. And then during your turn, if you activate a spell, trap, or monster, you get to attach the same material from the graveyard to it. So the idea is that Hyperion, during your opponent's turn, you got a quick effect, detach the same material as a card that was activated by your opponent and negate and destroy. So obviously if it has a monster and a spell, it can negate a monster and spell. It's only going to be able to do that once per turn, but it gives you the option to destroy and negate one or the other. For the rank 8 package, I've got Ding. Now, Ding actually put in a lot of work because the combo that I did with this, because I forgot Cross Sheep, yes, I'll explain that later, you can hate me later on that one, was my combo was actually a little bit more better in a certain sense, is rather than trying to make the Rika Queen first turn, is you actually made Ding with a Kaliga. So Ding protected the Kaliga from being destroyed by battle and card effect, and your opponent was locked by one monster effect, and it just made life easier because then what you would do is you would ultimately build up and then overlay the Kaliga when you needed to for the Rika Queen to bring out the Hyperion just to finish the game off. It was a bit unconventional, but it put a lot of work in. Continuing the rank 8 engine that I never actually played or resolved throughout the entire tournament was Dracula Bond with number 100 and Hope Harbinger. Now the reason I like this is purely because the ability to, not only can you bait out a lot throughout the plays, like I said, you've got the Alistair engine, the Snake engine. As long as you end up getting to a rank 8, I very rarely make Hope Harbinger because I think the defensive option of Ding with a Kaliga is better than Hope Harbinger with Macabre. Go figure. I don't know how I kind of come to that conclusion, but it just worked out better. I think Kaliga's harder to deal with than... Kaliga with Ding is harder to deal with than Hope Harbinger and Macabre, depending on the scenario as well. So, very rarely made that. But the idea is that if you do all of that bait out, you just make a rank 8 of Dracula Bond and then make Numeron Dragon. Numeron Dragon's going to be 9k and you pretty much swing for game there. That was probably the other thing as well, is it was very rare, unless I actually activated the Reptilian Queen, unless I activated her effect, it was very rare that my opponent would have a monster that only had 1,000 attack to give me enough for game. So I did have to be very, very cautious with the route that I was playing. Then for the fusions, we'll start off with the Invoked. So obviously Macabre, Kaliga, and Purgatrio. Never made Purgatrio. I put this in last minute because I was like, I really need another boss monster to go. But arguably this could be taken off. One thing I did learn as well is when I made Ding, I was locking my level 8s under him, so I couldn't really repeat the process the next turn. So that was one thing that you'd probably consider maybe putting a link to him, because then you could just go Kaliga, another link to, which would probably be like Cross Sheep or IP Masquerena, because then you could use Kaliga and Ding, put everything into the graveyard, and then start your combo off again. But Purgatrio, I underestimated how consistent people were going to put fires in the grave. Like I thought I was going to see Ash all day, every day. I never saw it, so I never had the chance to make it. Whereas these two put in so much work. Like Kaliga worked so hard throughout this entire tournament. So really, really good card. And then finishing off with the last ones, obviously Dragoon, the Venom. I was so worried about Dragon Link matchup that I decided to side in Super Poly. And I was also at the last minute going to play the Lair of Darkness engine, but I took it out completely for some more hand traps just because it never really served purpose. Like, I don't want to go second with this deck because like the snakes give my opponent advantage. So even if I use Lair of Darkness, use my snake in the graveyard to tribute my opponent's monster, the effect is still going to let them get that monster back anyway. So it kind of felt slightly redundant. So Venom can easily be taken out. And then we've got the one Artemis, the one Reptilia Inchinida, and the one Verte Anaconda. Verte Anaconda is pretty self-explanatory on that one. The Reptilia, she puts in so much work. So when it's linked summoned, you get to target one of your opponent's monsters, reduce its attack to 0. And then during the main phase, you can add reptile monsters from your deck up to the number of monsters your opponent controls with 0 attack. But you can only special summon reptiles for the rest of the turn. So that rest of the turn is a very, very important kind of aspect to keep in mind. Is you can do everything beforehand, then activate effect to set up a search for the next turn. The only thing that I missed, I would say that I missed, was the Secure Gardener into Almirage, which is probably where you would take these two cards out and swap them around. But when I was activating Prosperity, what I was banishing 9 times out of 10 was I was banishing this engine because I didn't feel like I needed it at certain points. There were a couple of times when I opened up Red Eyes Fusion, so this was a very easy banish. I would banish Purgatrio if I didn't feel that I was ever going to get a fire. If I was going first and didn't have Super Poly in, I'd banish Venom. And if I felt that I was going to get a Snake to the graveyard for the light target, I would get rid of Artemis. So there's a lot of very easy targets to banish off Prosperity. But as you can see from the lineup, you're probably only ever going to banish 6. That's it. You're never really going to want to banish 3 more or even 6 more, because you're either going to use them or you're going to have some use for them later on in the lineup. So that's it for the extra deck. Moving on to the side deck, and then I'll show you the 2-card combo. And yes, I am missing Cross Sheep. So Cross Sheep was the one card that I missed out. So right at the last minute, I was like, right, okay, I'm missing one card in my extra. I only had 14. I was like, right, okay, I've got Appaloosa with me. I've got Unicorn with me. I've got Access Code. I've got Venom. What do I put in? What am I missing? I went, right, okay, I'll put Starving Venom and I'll put the Super Polys in. And then as I was doing my first combo through Zoo, I was like, oh, okay, how do I get on the end combo again? I was like, I'm missing Cross Sheep. So lesson learned, Cross Sheep would definitely go in here. And I'll show you that, and I will proxy it for the combo, but that's like the maximum combo. Because I didn't have Cross Sheep, I had to rely on an additional extender, or that's where I ended up going for Kaliga Ding more, which actually worked out a little bit better for me. Onto the side deck, True Nibiru. Like, I never saw any of my side deck, I saw it, but never put it into effect. So True Nibiru, this probably went in the most. Dragon Lockbird went in against Dragonlink. Lancia went in against Dragonlink and Orcust. Super Poly went in against Dragonlink and Orcust as well. Twin Twisters went into pretty much the Zoo matchup because he played a lot of back row. The Madolche matchup, just in case he decided to go first and play a lot of back row. Less so the Dragon Link, and kind of go from there. But the issue with Twin Twisters is, yes, it's very good because it lets you put cards you want in the graveyard. But again, you also need to keep in mind that if your end board is going to be Macabre and Dragoon, and you've got a Twin Twister, you're going to be discarding 3 cards from your hand. Considering from your opening hand of 5, 2 cards are going to be there to make the combo, you're probably only going to get 3 more cards left in your hand. If you're lucky with one of the Twin Twisters being set, and that's like an Alistar plus 2 other cards. So the Twin Twisters can be very restrictive, which is why you might be better off going for stuff like Cosmic Cyclones, maybe even Lightning Storms or Feather Dusters. Ice Dragon Prison, never saw it, never put it in. Actually, no, I put this in against, I think I put it in against Madolche and Dragonlink, but never saw it because they made me go, I was like, I don't think they're going to make me go second, let me go first. So I was like, alright, I won't put it in. And they never really did, to be honest. I think the only time they did was the Madolche matchup. So, and the last 2 cards was a third Forbidden Droplet and then the Pot of Prosperity, because I was like, right, okay, I had 2 extra spaces. I put these in with what I had on me because I'd put the playsets in the deck originally. Did a last minute change. These were 2 Effect Veilers. I put the Effect Veilers into the deck, took these out just because I wanted to. I'm more of a player that likes having 2s of everything. 2s of a range rather than 3 of consistency. Sometimes it bites me in the arse, sometimes it doesn't. The Pot obviously never went in, Droplet never went in. Didn't need to, but there were those scenarios where it's like, right, okay, if I really need to rely on a Droplet, I'll put this in. If I really need consistency, I'll put in the Pot, but never did. Now to show you the 2-card combo, very, very simple. I'll try and zoom out as best as I possibly can for you guys, if possible. But the 2-card combo is quite simply any way to get to Alistar, and then any way of getting into your Nunu or Naya play. Now, ideally, Nunu is better, just because this gives you the free special summon. So if you don't get the Nunu, that's where it gets a little bit more tricky. But you also have Snake Rain that can apply this, and on a worst case scenario, if you open up a Water Lily, you can do it just to kind of get you partial combo. So the idea is you need to make sure you activate the Nunu first, because if you don't, you won't. If you normal summon the Alistar, you're going to struggle. So the only time this gets a little bit better is if you get Terraforming or Meltdown to try and bait out your opponent. But you still need the Alistar to get you your Invoked protection and your Evoked play. So the idea is you would activate Nunu's effect, send it to the graveyard, and send your Alarit with it. You would then use Nunu's effect before you normal summon the Alistar to summon itself back, locking yourself into Special Summon Reptiles while it's only on the field and while it's only been revived via its own effect. If you revive it with anything else, you're not locked into Reptiles, keep that in mind. Normal summon Alistar, do Wombo combo, get yourself an Invocation. There were a couple of times actually where I would do a combo, so like if I open up Naya, rather than turn this into Artemis, I would actually use Pot of Prosperity to banish the Artemis, and then use the Curse in the graveyard to tribute off the Alistar, which set up everything I needed anyway, and just gave me that monster to get rid of. Anyway, so you're going to overlay these 2, and you're going to go into, of course, your King of the Feral Imps. Detach material, doesn't really matter which one you detach, ultimately. Use the effect to add your Naya. Then going to use Naya's effect to send this, and then Naya's going to send Curse. Now, obviously, as you can see through this example, A well-timed Ghost Spell, a well-timed DD Crow, a well-timed Ash will stop the combo flat in its tracks, but you'd still get the Invocation. So if your opponent like Ash this, you still activate Invocation, get a Macabre, bring it back, you're good, slightly good to go. And then because you've already got the Alarit, you still have the ability to tribute this off for your Alarit and kind of make a few plays. So from this point on, what you want to do is you want to use Curse's effect to tribute off your King of the Feral Imps, putting them into the graveyard. Trigger off this effect. Now, this would let your opponent special summon a monster from their graveyard, so if they've hand-trapped you, they will get a bit of a wall back. This will bring back the Naya. Naya will then use her effect to search you out your Ogdoadic Water Lily. So now this is where Cross Sheet comes into play, because the idea is, the way you'd want to work it is you want to link these two together, keeping in mind that Naya gets banished, but that's fine because Alarit will put it back into the graveyard as well. And then this would go into a Cross Sheep. Now, obviously, because I didn't have the Cross Sheep, ultimately what I was doing with those is I was making Kaliga and then Verte Dragoon, or I was making Macabre Verte Dragoon. And then I'd hold on to the Water Lily for the next turn, or if I really, really wanted to, I would activate the Water Lily and bring out the Ogdoadic boss monster, the Overlord. So from this position here, keep in mind you've got 4 reptiles in the grave. You've got Alarit, you've got Nunu, you've got King of the Feral Imps, and you've got your Curse. You'd activate the Ogdoadic Water Lily, send in your Zohar from deck to grave. And then because you've got 5 of different names, you can either bring back the Nunu or you bring back the Zohar. It doesn't really matter as long as you're bringing back a level 4. And then what you do is you'd activate the Invocation. Now, you could go for Kaliga if you want to, but then you need to make sure that your next monster effect would be a... Vertes. But what we're going to do here is we're going to go Invocation, going to banish the Alistair, and you're going to banish, not Nunu, Curse. There we go. Because Nunu needs to be able to be revived with a Cross Sheep. You'd make your Macabre, wherever you are. That would trigger Cross Sheep. Cross Sheep will then revive a level 4, which will be Nunu. Then you're going to use the effect of Invocation to spin that back into there, add the Alistair back to the hand. You're going to overlay these two, and you're going to go into your Rika Queen. Where are you, Rika? I'm past it like 3 or 4 times. Oh, typical. Rika's this one here. So let's do that. Smart right here. You'd make your Rika, use Alarit's effect in the graveyard to tribute off the Rika, put in Nunu and Zohar back into the graveyard. Then that would trigger Alarit's effect as Chainlink 2 and Rika's Queen as Chainlink 1 to put 2 monsters back from your banish zone. So it puts your Curse and your Naya back into the extra deck. And then that will let you bring out your Sacred Beast. And then what that will let you do is that will let you add your Rika Queen to it as material. Now, you've activated a monster effect, so on a separate chain, you could attach a monster here. But what I like to do is I like to save it to attach the red eyes so that I can't get Ice Dragon Prisoned if my opponent tries to do so. So what you then do is use Alarit and you use the Cross Sheep and you go into Verte. You then declare to use Verte's effect, pay 2,000 life points, send the materials from your deck to the graveyard. Bring yourself out the Dragoon. There we go. Because you've activated a monster effect, Sacred Tree would go off, and this is where I attach the red eyes, because then I can't get Ice Dragon Prison because I don't have... Oh, not sorry, red eyes. Dark Magician. Because then I can't get Ice Dragon Prison because Alistair's in my hand. So unless I discard this to protect or anything like that, I'm good. And then they can't Ice Dragon Prison to get rid of my Dragoon. Now, the only downside here is you only have 1 card to discard, so that's where the remaining 3 cards in your hand will then come into play to make sure that these 2 are both live and active. But ultimately, what you're saying to your opponent is, I've got an Omni Negate here, I've got a guaranteed Monster Negate here, because you know I've got this, but if I've held onto a spell or anything like that, I can negate that as well. This one's going to be able to negate a monster effect, and if I had like a Droplet, for example, I could set the Droplet and I've got another negate by getting rid of Verte. So it's a very, very cool combo that blows the board out. But the combo can also vary as well. So if you're really not that worried about the Hyperion, you can go for, like I said, you can go for a Kaliga and a Ding. And because you're not actually activating effect once you make everything, so as long as you make the Alarit and you've got Alarit and Curse on the board, you can then make those. So I'll try and reverse this as best I possibly can. But it's very situational in certain stages. So let's say we have... Let's take it back to, just so I can show you the example. So we've got the Curse and we've got the Naya. So rather than going to Cross Sheet, what you would do is you can use Alarit's effect to tribute off the Naya, which bring this back. Now straight away you've got the rank 8 materials here. You've also got the Ogdoadic Water Lily that you can still resolve, so that will stay in hand as well. So you've got the ability, the Naya will get banished, but what you do is you've got the ability to make a rank 8 here. So this would then be your Ding. Where are you, Ding? There we go. So this would then be your Ding. And then what you've got the ability to do is you can activate your invocation. Invocation can then banish your King of the Feral Imps or your Alistair. Or what you would do first is you could activate your Ogdoadic Water Lily just to make sure you get a monster back. So let's say rather than sending Zohar, we decided to send... I don't think we've got 5 reptiles actually, so I might take that back. Yeah, so you just use it, you'd only end up with 4. So your Ogdoadic Water Lily is not really going to get anything. So you'd hold on to this. The idea is you'd activate the invocation, you'd banish the Alistair, and then you can banish... Obviously, Dark Magician, that wouldn't be in the graveyard. But you'd banish King of the Feral Imps. Where are you? There we go. That will then bring you out your Kaliga. Wherever Kaliga is. There we go. So then this is like a much more reserved. So then you would add the Alistair back to the hand, put Invocation back to the deck. And then you'd pretty much play off of the back of that. So you'd then pass it there. Now you'd still have 3 additional cards in your hand. Plus you've ended up plussing the Ogdoadic Water Lily and Alistair. And then your opponent's got to try and get rid of Kaliga. So this is a much more reserved board. But it's literally like, do I think my opponent can break this? No, I don't think they can. I think having a... Especially if you've got like an Effect Veiler. They try to activate a monster effect. You activate Effect Veiler. That's it. Both our effects have been activated. They can't get rid of Kaliga. So... unless that monster is of 1900 or more. And if they do, then you hold back the Effect Veiler and you do it another way. So there's a lot to kind of go on, and you've always got to remember that. But then the idea behind this would be, once they've done their thing, you've locked your opponent down, you just go, right, cool, link these, go into Verte, just to clear the board off. So you've got the ability to make Verte Anaconda, but you've also got the ability to normal summon Alistair, do your search, make your board. Ultimately, you would end up with a Macabre plus this. So you've got your Macabre can protect your Verte plays and everything like that. You still got the Ogdoadic Water Lily, so if you wanted to activate this before any of that, you would have stacked your graveyard with, of course, the snakes. So you'd be going, right, okay, fine, activate the Ogdoadic Water Lily, bring this guy out, activate Verte, Verte bring out Dragoon, everything's protected, Dragoon pop 2. So if your opponent's been able to put up a board, which I doubt they will be, this would just be overkill, but you can kind of see where you're going with this one. You're just going to go, right, cool, boom, one punch, smash. So, works out well, puts in a lot of work, and I thoroughly enjoyed this deck. So I think a lot of it went down to people just not knowing what the deck did and what not knowing what some of the parts did. But even then, it doesn't take away from the strength of the deck. And trust me, I was honest with all my opponents. Literally every time I played the snake during during my turn after they had already had a turn, I was like, right, you get to revive this and you get to do this. So do not worry about that. I made sure that the snakes hurt me just as much as they helped me. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this video. I hope it's given you a couple of ideas, and I hope you can kind of see the potential and the power behind this deck. I can't imagine the Invoked engine being at full power for much longer, so there will be changes to this deck coming up, but I think it's one of the best decks that came out of Ancient Guardians, if not the best deck, and really puts in a lot of work. But, as absolutely always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.
Looking to pick up your very own custom sleeves? Well, look no further. Go to yourplaymat.com, where you can choose to have your very own image on the back of sleeves, or you can choose from their amazing range of pre-designed artwork ready and waiting for you. Get them shipped directly to your door and use the affiliate link and discount code down below to get 10% off. What are you waiting for? Go and grab your custom sleeves from yourplaymat.com.